ever wondered, what if Anakin reached his full potential in Revenge of the Sith? What if the young Jedi outplayed his old master and took the Senate under his control, becoming Emperor of the galaxy? How would that have changed things? Well, gather around everyone, because that is exactly the scenario that we'll be jumping into today. So grab a cup of Bantha Brew, cuddle up with your pet Tauntaun, and let's hop right into what if Anakin reached his full potential. Our story begins in the Senate chambers post Order 66. Palpatine is in the middle of delivering his grand speech to his new government about how the war is over and how he is creating the first galactic empire. However, in this timeline, Anakin gets greedy. As we all know, in the original, he complies with Sidious's demands, and he goes to kill all the Separatist leaders. Rather than simply following through with his original plan Anakin believes that he can learn to save Padme without Palpatine's help. So, after he's ordained as Vader, and after the Sith Master commands the execution of Order 66, Anakin decides to do something incredibly bold. He doesn't go with the 501st to the Jedi Temple, nor does he go to Mustafar to slay the Separatist leaders. Instead, Anakin watches from afar at the military garrison on Coruscant as the order is executed. When the mess is cleaned up, he then goes to the temple and steals security footage of the clones killing the younglings before barging into the Senate chambers in the middle of Palpatine's grand speech and presenting his evidence to the politicians. The senators are absolutely appalled at Palpatine's ordering of the execution of literal children along with the genocide of Jedi, especially since these kids aren't old enough to understand the missteps of their Jedi leaders. They also don't believe that every Jedi should be punished for the actions of a few at the top. At first, Palpatine just scoffs at Anakin, saying that he's another one of these traitorous Jedi who's trying to frame Palpatine in a negative light. He even says that the tapes are fake, but the Senate doesn't buy it. So Palpatine tries and goes with a second argument as the savvy senator that he is. And he says that it's the fault of the clones for misunderstanding Order 66. However, the Senate still doesn't listen to him. Padme starts a chant of shame that catches on throughout the entire Senate chamber, and Palpatine is disgraced. In his Sith frustration, he lashes out, unleashing a large barrage of Force lightning in Padme's direction as she started the chant. Anakin, seeing that he's attacking his wife, blocks it with the Force, pushing it back towards the Dark Lord, motivated by love. Palpatine doesn't anticipate this level of power from his apprentice at this point, even though he knows that he's going to be strong in the dark side. In the end, his arrogance is his downfall. Anakin eventually overwhelms the already weakened Dark Lord with his lightning, and Palpatine dies right there and then, swallowed by his own weapon. The Senate cheers as Anakin looks upon the charred ashes of Palpatine with a dark simmer in his eyes. Seeing him as a hero who had deposed a corrupt dictator, the Senate appoints Anakin to be the new Chancellor, and Anakin proclaims himself the benevolent Emperor of the galaxy. Obi-Wan and Yoda end up coming to duel Anakin on Coruscant, but with the help of many clones at his disposal and Palpatine's Red Guards that he'd now adopted as his own, Anakin is able to subdue them. Not even these two Jedi Masters can handle entire legions of trained clone soldiers, plus some clone commandos that are also on standby on Coruscant. Anakin is angry, but he is just. He puts these Jedi in prison, hoping to never see them again. How does this impact the rest of our story? Well, let's keep going and find out. In this timeline, Anakin is a good emperor. Even though he uses the dark side, he still has very strong opinions about organized crime in the galaxy due to his horrendous upbringing as a slave at the hands of Watto and the Hutts. Anakin starts his tenure as emperor by pruning the corrupt politicians from the Senate, calling them traitors to the new empire. He sees some of them taking bribes from corporations and not representing the needs of their citizens, so he decides to eliminate them from his government. Padme doesn't like this course of action because she believes in freedom and democracy, but she's unable to dissuade her husband. The children of Anakin and Padme are born to a raucous applause from the galaxy, who believe that this is the beginning of a powerful new galactic dynasty, the Skywalker Dynasty. Anakin keeps the clones in the military, as he believes in their ability to maintain peace across the galaxy. He appoints Captain Rex to the rank of commander, and he makes him commander of the military, along with a chief advisor to him on military issues. Rex is happy with this appointment. At heart, he's a soldier, and he wants to continue to bring peace to the galaxy. While he's not so sure about all of this new Empire stuff, he does trust Anakin, and he believes that he will have a good influence on the young Emperor. Following this move, Anakin decides to finally eradicate the Separatist threat, and he commissions more clones and the striking of key targets until the Separatists finally surrender. Rather than using Palpatine's strategy of prolonging the war and going after small guerrilla warfare targets in the Outer Rim, Anakin decides to deal with it right then, right there, and completely cut them off. Anakin promises that the Separatist systems will be treated fairly under his leadership because the clones end up squashing them with this new strategy. Anakin mixes the clone officers with citizen graduates of the Academy on Coruscant, such as Tarkin and Yularen. This causes some tension between the two classes, but overall stability is maintained. There's always some degree of removal between the officers and between the ranking members of the military. Anakin's main mandate when he becomes emperor is crushing slavery. He is infuriated that it continues to persist, especially under the Republic, a government which claimed to be all for freedom, democracy, and liberty of all people. No, Anakin wouldn't have any of this slavery. He decides that it is time to wipe it out entirely. His new military goes on a galactic crusade against slavers, and Anakin begins to reform the Empire into his image. He also trains the Grand Inquisitor on the side, and he appoints him to hunt down any remaining Jedi. However, he tells the Grand Inquisitor that he wants to leave them alive so that they can stand a fair trial, something that Mace Windu wasn't going to allow for Palpatine. Padme still has an influence on Anakin, and because of this, he respects the will of the Senate. However, when he speaks, he carries a significant amount of weight, and they usually end up listening to his advice when implementing legislation. Speaking of the Senate, due to Anakin's new mandate to crush slavery across the galaxy, they provide their blessing to Admiral Tarkin, who ends up leading a successful campaign against the slaving race of Zygerians, and a significant chunk of their galaxy-spanning operation is shut down when he orbitally bombards their homeworld, forcing a surrender. This is a controversial issue in the galaxy. A lot of folks are on board with Tarkin's handling of this situation because, after all, they're slavers and they believe that slavery is evil. However, some think that he took it a little bit too far, and perhaps in doing so he killed many innocent slaves as well. In the end though, this debate is inconsequential as the results had been achieved. With the fall of Zygeria, the Shadow Collective begins to gain more influence in the galaxy. The Hutts increase their slave trading operations, and so does Crimson Dawn. Maul, seeing an opportunity to gain more power, believes the Shadow Collective should continue on this course of action. Colonel Yularen, head of the Imperial Security Bureau, through civilian informants and undercover ISB agents, hears of this increased activity in the criminal underworld. While the Imperial military is effective in confronting smaller operations, they're still having a difficult time unwinding the massive web that was organized crime. At this point, the events of the canon novel Thrawn have played out, and the Blue Alien's reputation continues to grow in the Empire. Anakin remembers Thrawn from the mission that they had worked together on, which is detailed in Thrawn Alliances, and he is fully confident in the military intelligence of the Chiss warrior. Thrawn also has a significant amount of respect for Skywalker, as he remembers Anakin from when they had had their mission together. However, he also knows that the Emperor could be a wild card. Anakin asks Thrawn to help with the disposal of these criminal groups, and he wants him to be in charge of how it is done. In the shadows, Krennic and Tarkin continue to work on Project Stardust as an endgame for intimidating these groups, along with small rebel cells that were starting to pop up. Anakin maintains a commitment to regional sovereignty though, so as long as the systems are meeting tax quotas and military obligations, there are less people who see him as a tyrant and therefore less rebel activity. A greater focus is paid to the Shadow Collective. Thrawn believes that in order to impede both the slave trade and the spice sales in one fell swoop, the Empire should focus their attention on the spice mines of Kessel. Anakin agrees. Anakin, being the confident emperor that he is, decides that he wants to go in there on his own and lead the troops. Padme convinces him that he could actually use some help in this situation, and she does it in a very unexpected way. Anakin, being a cocky Sith Lord, thinks that his abilities are all that, but at the same time, he has to satisfy the concerns of his wife. So, in a surprising move, even though he hates the Jedi Order, Anakin decides to recruit Obi-Wan and Yoda to his cause. Even though he hates the Jedi, Anakin knows that Obi-Wan and Yoda are not evil people. Instead, he sees that their order had just been corrupt, and the instigators of the insurgency had been dealt with. So, Anakin enlists their help to assist on this mission. He doesn't forgive them yet, but he does promise them pardons if they are successful. Anakin is a much more merciful emperor than Sidious, and in this situation, we can see him fluctuating between the light and the dark side. The Jedi agree, seeing that they have an opportunity to both help the galaxy and also earn their freedom in one fell swoop, hitting two birds with one stone. So, the Imperials go off and they navigate the Kessel Run very carefully, knowing what can happen to those who take risks along the way. Eventually, after some extremely careful navigation, the fleet emerges atop Kessel. Anakin stands on the bridge, his hands clasped behind his back, with his Jedi comrades beside him. He looks down at the planet, his eyes filled with Sith rage. Soon, he would crush the organized criminals who had enslaved him as a child. He would ensure that nobody would have to live the same fate that he did. Soon, all of those who profited off of the suffering of others would face justice for their actions. Anakin turns and walks away, ready to board a shuttle and land on the planet. Soon, Anakin would exact his revenge. In this situation, the Empire had done an incredible job of hiding their operation. When they arrive at Kessel, the syndicates are taken aback. In order to free the slaves and help take out the criminals, Anakin orders that the destroyers in the sky do not orbitally bombard the planet until the mission had been accomplished. Thrawn obliges these wishes, and he positions the Seven Fleet in such a way that the entire planet is blockaded. Any escaping ships would have a difficult time. Anakin goes to the ground with the Jedi and Rex, leading an assault with the clone troopers. Obi-Wan is reunited with Cody, who apologizes to him for everything that he'd done. He had no choice with Order 66 and all. Obi-Wan and Yoda both understand, and they make peace with the clones before the battle. Jedi aren't supposed to hold grudges, after all. The clones, under the leadership of the Jedi and Vader, work together to subdue the surprised and disorganized criminals. Anakin's anger against the slavers translates into his vicious use of the Force. He's able to utilize Force lightning with his non-mechanical hand, and he snaps the necks of many slavers that he encounters with his Force choke. Obi-Wan and Yoda are much more careful about their use of the Force. Obi-Wan simply uses Force push in order to throw many of the criminals into walls rather than outright killing them, as in his mind it would be against the Jedi way for them to go out without a fair trial. Obi-Wan does, after all, love democracy, loves the Republic, and his allegiance is to both. Yoda brings chunks of rocks down from the ceiling, raining them on top of his foes, but again, he doesn't kill them. Instead, he buries them so that they cannot escape until somebody comes to free them. He knocks them unconscious with giant fistfuls of these rocks and then piles them on top of the criminals. The battle is going very smoothly until an unexpected face comes from the shadows. A devil, a demon that neither of these Jedi had seen in years emerges from the shadows. The Dathomirian that had caused all of the trouble for Obi-Wan in the Clone Wars comes forward again. Maul shows his face. He starts to slay many of the clones that had raided the facility. Anakin, Obi-Wan, and Yoda are forced to come together once again to duel this master of the Force. Maul cackles, looking forward to testing his powers once again against actual foes rather than simple criminal underlings that didn't know how to put up a good fight. Maul is also very happy to have another chance to battle with his old nemesis, Obi-Wan Kenobi. He had never truly gotten the revenge that he desired, and now he would have that opportunity. Together, the Jedi and Anakin are able to subdue Maul, but Maul puts up a huge fight. He uses his double-bladed lightsaber, and he cackles at the Jedi, telling them that he was their worst nightmare, and reminding Obi-Wan of the time that he had killed Satine right in front of his eyes, trying to seduce Obi-Wan to the dark side. However, eventually, because of Yoda's mastery of the acrobatic form of lightsaber combat and Obi-Wan's defensive style, they manage to subdue Maul and put him in a corner, cutting his lightsaber in half and leaving their lightsabers to his throat, telling him to surrender. Obi-Wan says that they should leave the Dathomirian alive. Anakin, however, is hearing none of it. He is the Emperor, after all, and this man was disrupting the stability of his kingdom with this criminal enterprise that preyed on the fears of others. Anakin decapitates Maul right there and then, winning the duel, seething. Obi-Wan and Yoda exchange looks with one another, but they don't say anything. They know that Anakin is in the dark side now, and he is not a Jedi like he used to be. This was clear. The Anakin that they had known was gone, replaced with Emperor Vader. From here, many of the slaves are freed, and the criminals are arrested by the Empire. None are able to make it past Thrawn's blockade, especially when he deploys some of his experimental TIE defenders to take down those who are trying to escape. In this timeline, the Empire is brutally effective in bringing down the Shadow Collective in one fell swoop. When Anakin returns to Coruscant, he gives a grand speech to the population about how he had crushed the Shadow Collective and how he had defeated Maul with the help of the Jedi fugitives, and he is seen as a hero by citizens of the galaxy. The Shadow Collective begins to fracture, and nobody is seen to be a good successor to Maul. The Black Sun, the Pikes, Crimson Dawn, and the Hutts all go to war with one another, trying to lead following his demise. The Imperials, because of this, have a much easier time dealing with the fractured criminal underworld, and they can still bring it to its knees. Anakin pardons the two Jedi, telling them that he bore no issues with them anymore. He also tells them, though, that he would never return to the ways of the Jedi. Kenobi says to Anakin that he hopes he will change his mind one day, and Anakin calls him a hypocrite. He could sense a small sense of relief in Obi-Wan's soul with the death of Maul, a satisfaction with the revenge about how this monster had killed Satine. Obi-Wan says that the difference between him and Anakin was that he could resist those feelings and control his emotions, whereas Anakin, he simply gave in to the hatred. Anakin asks what good that was when Kenobi had to sacrifice everything that he loved for his morals. The two Jedi leave, and Padme is very proud of Anakin. Anakin believes that with the defeat of the Shadow Collective, he can be more lenient in government. Padme has more influence on him, and the Senate continues to gain prominence. Anakin proposes the reformation of the Council of Moffs to be democratically elected, and the Senate actually ratifies this. So, Anakin gives the people more of a choice in their government leaders. How does this all impact the conclusion of our story? Well, let's find out. Anakin rules in much the same way as he did before. Anakin's children remain beloved by the Empire. Luke becomes a prominent pilot in the Imperial Navy, and he eventually earns his own command. Leia ends up being the youngest person to ever be elected to the Council of Moffs. Anakin officially apologizes to the galaxy for the genocide of the Jedi, stating that Sidious could have dealt with the traitors in a much more efficient and less bloody way. The galaxy under Anakin is at peace. He's more democratic in his imperial rule, and he is well liked. The criminal activity goes down significantly. Remaining Jedi in the galaxy are allowed to exist peacefully under new decrees by his laws, and the Inquisitors are used more as legal enforcement than as Jedi hunters. Because of this, things are turning out well for the galaxy, and Anakin's empire is expansive, powerful, and free. At the end of the day, it seems that Anakin truly had brought peace, freedom, justice, and security to his new empire. Hello there everyone, and thank you so much for tuning in for another Bantha Stew What If scenario. You know, I really enjoyed coming up with the plot points for this one because it's just such a fascinating topic to explore, and it's one of those what ifs that will never get old to think about. I always really enjoy contemplating this scenario, and I think there are so many different possibilities for how it could have played out. So if you have any other ideas for what you think would have happened if Anakin had reached his full potential, please leave them down in the comments below. I would absolutely love to hear from you. Do you think there should be a part 2 to this one? If so, what direction do you think that we could take it in? Again, I would love to hear all of your thoughts in the comments. And if you would really like to engage with me, I'm being pretty active in the Discord these days, so you guys should hop down there and we'll see what I can do. I would love to interact with you more, and I would love to have a good conversation with you guys over there, so hop in our growing Discord server. Anyway, if you enjoyed this episode, I would really appreciate it if you went over and watched this other one, which I think you would like, What If the Jedi Survived Order 66. I hope that all of you guys have a fantastic rest of your day, a bantha-tacular rest of your day, I should say. And, as always, I hope that each and every one of you has had your daily delicious dose of Bantha Stew.